The federal government's indicating it could drop one of the most contentious parts of its industrial relations bill because it's not that important. As he criticised Labour and the unions for beating up their criticism of the changes, the Industrial Relations Minister argued he was still open to negotiation. Political reporter Matthew Doran is in Parliament House Thrust. Hi there, Matt. The words I wrote down were, it's early days, it's a process of continuing discussion of a draft bill. That sounds like he is prepared to make some concessions.
Yeah, Lorna, good afternoon. You don't normally make those sort of comments a day after having introduced the legislation to Parliament if you aren't sort of laying the groundwork for some pretty significant changes, or at least a back down on key parts of the legislation. That's certainly how Christian Porter seems to be phrasing it this afternoon, a day after having introduced the laws to Parliament and being faced with a barrage of criticism from Labor and the unions that this was another coalition attempt to try to undermine workers' pay and conditions. The most contentious part of this omnibus bill, the parliamentary jargon that's used to explain a bill that is very wide-ranging in its application, is the issue of the Fair Work Commission being given the power to agree to deals struck between businesses and their employers that could leave some staff worse off for up to 2 years if that business can prove that it's been struggling during the coronavirus pandemic. Labor and the unions were very quick to seize on that and say that that is not a good course of action, that of course all businesses have been doing it tough during the pandemic, and while Australia goes through an economic recovery, it shouldn't be up to workers to have to bear the burden of that recovery there, that they should have their pay and conditions protected because they too are doing it tough at the moment. It is a large bill, it is wide-ranging, it's dealing with everything from the rights of casual workers to some other measures aimed at simplifying workplace agreements, but that is the real bone of contention here and has certainly erupted pretty quickly. The Industrial Relations Minister Christian Porter has hit back at suggestions that the union movement was blindsided by this after hours and hours of negotiations with the government and business groups throughout the coronavirus crisis. But if you pay attention to how he's phrasing this situation here, he's sort of suggesting he's not going to die in a ditch over this part of the legislation, and it could be, even though this bill won't be dealt with until next year when Parliament resumes, considering that today is the last parliamentary sitting day for 2020, he's sort of suggesting that its time on the books could be numbered.
I don't think they're the most important part of the bill, I must say, but nevertheless they are important because they offer an avenue for very distressed businesses where the distress has been caused by COVID to access a provision that has long been in the Fair Work Act and which does some good for those businesses. So, however, like all of the other parts of the Act, dealing with all of the 5 problems that we're seeking to solve, we'll listen, we'll talk to people, it'll go through a committee process,